Hello and welcome back to Explain USA. Today we're diving into a presidential announcement that on the surface seems pretty straightforward. But as we're going to break down, underneath those simple words is a really complex story. A story with massive implications for global power and for the very definition of what it means to win a war. And it all kicks off with this. 2 weeks, maybe 3. It just sounds so casual, doesn't it, for a decision this huge? But the analysis we're looking at says this isn't just some off-the-cuff remark. It's a signal, a sign that this whole thing might be more complicated than it looks. This statement is really the key to unlocking the entire puzzle. And that really brings us to the heart of the matter. Is this a bold, decisive move by a strong leader? Or is it a massive strategic blunder, an accidental admission of failure on the world stage? That's the question we're here to explore. So let's really dig into that second possibility. You know, it's a strange idea to get your head around. The notion that choosing to leave a war isn't always a choice. The argument here is that sometimes it's actually an admission that you just can't win anymore, that maybe you've already lost. It's so important that we're all on the same page about what this term means. We are not talking about a peace treaty where everybody agrees to lay down their arms. Nope. A unilateral withdrawal is when one side just packs up and leaves the battlefield. They abandon their posts, they abandon their goals, all while the other side is still fighting. So here's the bottom line. According to this analysis, the U.S. is basically trapped between a rock and a hard place. Option 1, a humiliating retreat. Just give up your bases, your influence, everything. Option 2, a catastrophic war. Go all in with ground troops and risk a conflict that could spiral into a global disaster. When those are your only two choices, well, pulling out starts to look less like a strategy and more like the only option left. And to really understand why retreat is even a word on the table, you have to look past all the politics and see the reality on the ground. I mean, what is the actual physical condition of America's military power in that part of the world? The analysis hinges on this number. Over 13. More than 13 major U.S. military bases and facilities in the region have been hit. And we're not talking about small incidents here. We're talking about serious, significant damage to the very infrastructure that projects American power. And just look at the scale of this. This isn't some random list of outposts. You've got key strategic hubs in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar. You've got the home of the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. These are the crown jewels of the U.S. military presence in the Gulf. And this just shows how widespread and systematic the attacks have been. In fact, the situation has apparently gotten so bad that some U.S. soldiers are reportedly running operations from hotels. The analysis actually calls it a war work from home. I mean, just picture that for a second. It's a wild image, but it shows you just how impossible things get when your own fortified bases aren't safe anymore. Which, of course, leads to the next big question, right? If you can't even operate out of your own multi-billion-dollar military bases, what are your options? What does that do to your power, to your influence, and to the entire region? And that brings us to the next almost inevitable consequence. Because in geopolitics, just like in nature, a vacuum does not stay empty for long. When one major power pulls back, another one always steps in to fill that space. According to this analysis, a U.S. exit wouldn't just magically end the conflict. Not at all. What it would do is create a massive power vacuum, and that would totally rewrite the rules for the entire region, setting the stage for a new dominant player to take over. So why Iran? Well, the argument is pretty compelling. You have to remember historically and geographically, Persia has always been the heavyweight champion of this region. On top of that, you've got vast natural resources, a huge population, an almost unbelievable ability to withstand decades of sanctions, and a very tough, battle-hardened military. They are perfectly positioned to fill that void. And the ripple effects of that? They're huge. For decades, key U.S. allies like Israel and the UAE have basically lived under an American security umbrella. Think about it. If that umbrella suddenly folds up and disappears, they are left totally exposed and incredibly vulnerable in a region now dominated by their biggest rival. But here's the thing. This fight isn't just about soldiers and tanks anymore. To really get the full picture, you have to understand that modern wars are fought across a bunch of different domains, all at the same time. It is truly a war on all fronts. You can think of it like this. There are 3 tiers. On the bottom, you've got your traditional kinetic warfare. The bombs, the bullets, the stuff you see on the news. But above that, you've got this whole other battleground, cyber and economic warfare. And at the very top, you have information warfare.
the psychological fight for what people believe. The argument is, to win today, you have to be winning on all three of these levels.
And this is an area where Iran has proven to be incredibly skilled. We're talking about cyber attacks on things like water treatment plants, psychological ops using fake text messages to create panic, and hacking to demoralize entire populations. It's a perfect example of asymmetric warfare, using clever, non-traditional tactics to fight a much stronger military power.
Which brings us right back to that impossible choice we talked about. Path 1, leave now. But that means accepting a strategic defeat and basically handing the entire region over to Iran. Path 2, go to war, risking a brutal conflict that could wreck the global economy. The sobering conclusion here is that maybe, just maybe, there are no good options left on the table. And that's what this analysis leaves us with, this one big question. When wars are fought not just on battlefields, but in cyberspace and in our own minds, what does it even mean to win anymore? It's a tough question, and maybe the old definitions just don't apply. If you like informative videos, you can subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.